Well, if I could describe myself in one phrase, it would be man of action. I've always been a big believer of don't talk about it, be about it. Ever since I was very little, I've always held myself to high standards. I worked ever since I could, since I was 14. I've worked in many different fields to try things out. I've worked farming, I worked fast food, I've worked lifeguard, and now I'm working security, and it's a really good fit for me, and I really enjoy the job. My mindset right now is on school. I plan on graduating with an associate's in business and in general studies with a business concentration, and then transferring that to business. And hopefully, with that, I can use that to kind of work my way up the corporate ladder and just kind of dominate at the current corporation that I'm in, and just build my way up professionally from there. Yeah. Well, I started working when I was about 14. I worked for a nonprofit called the Food Project, and what they had us doing was in the summertime working on the farms, different farms in different areas of Greater Boston, like Lynn, Swampscott, Gloucester, Framingham, Dorchester. There were so many different locations. During the winter and the fall, they had us intern. We were teaching workshops to various groups, from elementary kids to like college kids, about food injustice in America, about how we could change the food system that we currently have, how it's being very mass produced, and it's not very healthy for us. And I did this for about 3 years, and I worked my way up that. But I aged out, after high school, and so I then went on to work, various different fast food establishments. I wasn't really too comfortable working, there. I'm not very motivated at 8.20 an hour, and so I decided that I need to pursue a more suitable job. I became a lifeguard in the summer of 2013, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed knowing that I was the one, in the line of making sure everybody was safe, because I knew that I could handle the responsibility of making sure nobody got hurt, and I knew that I had the right training to do what I needed to do if something were to happen. I did have a couple emergencies, nothing too big, just a couple toddlers here, parents weren't supervising. I was able to make sure everybody was safe, and I was able to give a nice clean report after the incident, and that was looked upon very well, and I didn't continue the lifeguard just because it's a seasonal, but now I'm doing security, which is very similar in terms of work, and I really enjoy the job that I have right now, and hopefully I'll stick with this job for a long time and work my way up that. Let me see, a time I worked well with others. Well, I can give you the first day of my first job experience. That was quite an interesting experience. And that one day, I definitely transitioned from being somebody who was very closed-minded and ignorant to someone who wanted to learn more about culture and was hunger for more, knowledge on diversity. And that was just off 6 hours of working. And so what happened was, I remember getting picked up in a school bus. It was about 30 of us, complete strangers, all of us young, all of us in high school, very, very ignorant to the ways of the world, very stuck in our own ways, nobody wanted to really make conversation. I remember that much. It was very quiet the first bus ride there. I remember that. And there was a lot of stairs, and I wasn't having it, I couldn't deal. I just kept to myself, and I waited to get to the field so I could just bust out the work, make that money, and go home. That's all that was on my mind. And so yeah, so I ended up doing that up until when we got to the site. And when we got to the site, almost like in a military boot camp, the second we stepped out of the bus, we were told to sprint all the way down to the field and drop to your knees and just start plowing away at the weeds. And they sent us into like this patch of really thorny, really just unforgiving summer squash, and it just so happened to be the hottest day of the summer, the first day of work. And first impressions are everything. I'll tell you that. wow, did that really smack it out of us, all of us. We were really humbled by that, just that experience alone. After maybe 30 minutes alone, we were all dying. And so, to keep our morale up, we started singing. We started introducing ourselves, playing little games with our crew leaders. And then we just started to feel for the culture of things. We started to really just open up. And it's like when you go through an experience with somebody, or even with a group of people, anything really, just a life-changing experience, those people suddenly aren't strangers, but they become more like family. And that closeness that we got just off that one day, we went to lunch, we all enjoyed each other's company. It was kind of like a potluck. Everybody was just sharing each other's food. And on the bus ride home, it was just so loud and hectic. Everybody was singing songs, and it was amazing. The transition was absolutely amazing. I thirst for more. And so I pursued that job, and I was able to work there for about 3 years. But I'll never forget how humbling that experience was. I went from working by myself, thinking everything was to myself, to understanding that as a team you can pull through even the most difficult tasks. And just like putting aside our differences and being able to work through that patch of unforgiving summer squash, and just persevere through it. And then at the end of the day, look back at everything you did and just stare and smile. Yeah. I remember this one time at my new job, where I had to kind of manage a whole bunch of things at once. And it was where we had a shipment of dry ice come in. And it was a large shipment, so I had to be downstairs in the front lobby to make sure everybody signed in, and to let everybody in the front door. And I also had to be in a couple of different areas in the building to kind of check on an hourly basis. And so I was a conflict of interest right there. I had to be in two places at once. And so it was there was that. And then at the same time, a fire alarm in the garage went off, and so I had to call the fire department, let them have access to the fire panel, make sure that everything was okay, write an incident report, and relay the information to my supervisor, all while dealing with the shipment cargo, and just checking the building. And so I had just a crap ton of things to do. And so what I did was I sat down, I gave myself a second to breathe. I wrote out a to-do list, and I wrote down everything I needed to get done, and then I wrote down what needed to happen now and what could wait a little bit. And so I was able to manage my time where I did two things at once, and then that actually ended up saving me more time than I thought. And yeah, I was able to save time instead of waste time like that. And it was a very efficient and effective way of dealing with that time management.